She ignored my existence for 30 straight days. No fights, no shouting, no explanations, when I just silence. It started so subtly I almost missed it. A skipped goodnight kiss. A busy reply instead of a real conversation. Then one day I realized she hadn't said my name in over a week. My name is Ethan, and for 3 years Maya was my world. We met at a bookstore downtown. The kind of quiet place where you can hear pages turn like whispers. She smiled at me over a copy of The Great Gatsby. And I remember thinking I'd never seen someone look so sure of herself. Confident, independent, the kind of woman who made everyone around her slow down just to catch a bit of her energy. And for a while, we were good. We laughed a lot, traveled when we could afford to, built a small life that felt solid. But somewhere along the line, the laughter started to sound rehearsed. It's strange how emotional distance doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in. You start noticing how often she's on her phone. How the "I love you" texts turn into thumbs-up emojis. How the person who once made you feel seen starts walking past you like a shadow. I tried to talk about it. Once, twice, maybe 10 times. Every time I started, she'd sigh and say, "You're overthinking again, Ethan." Maybe I was. Or maybe I just missed the sound of her voice when it was meant for me. The first week of silence felt like an accident. The second week felt like a choice. By the third, I stopped trying. There's something humiliating about begging for attention from the person who used to give it freely. You start shrinking just to fit the silence they leave behind. I began to notice little things that once made her happy. The smell of coffee in the morning. The playlist we made on that road trip to Vermont. None of it mattered anymore. She'd sit on the couch scrolling through her phone while I cooked dinner. She didn't even look up when I placed the plate in front of her. So I started writing. Not to her, but to myself. Notes about how it felt to live with someone who treated me like background noise. Notes about how love shouldn't feel like walking on glass barefoot. Day 14. She hasn't touched me in 2 weeks. I still make her coffee every morning. Day 18, she smiled at a text, and not mine. Day 23. I think she's waiting for me to end it so she doesn't have to. By day 25, something in me cracked, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't anger, it was exhaustion. The kind that settles in your bones and makes you question why you're holding on to something that's already gone cold. She didn't even notice when I stopped trying. That's the part that hurt most. Not that she ignored me, but that my absence meant nothing. One night around day 28, I came home late. She was asleep on the couch, her phone still in her hand, light from the screen fading across her face. I stood there for a long time staring at the woman I loved, trying to remember what it felt like when she loved me back. I couldn't. The next morning, she didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't ask anything. Just poured her coffee, sat in silence, and scrolled. It was then I realized she wasn't just ignoring me. She was erasing me, so I made a decision. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and final. Like the closing of a book you've read too many times hoping for a different ending. I spent day 30 cleaning. I folded my clothes, boxed up the memories, left only what was hers. I didn't write a long message or plan a confrontation. She'd already stopped listening, but I wanted to leave something, no, not for her, but for the part of me that still believed in closure. On day 31, before she woke up, I placed a small bouquet of white lilies on the kitchen counter. She always said they reminded her of peace. Next to them, I left a note. It said, "Thank you for the best lies I ever believed." I stood there for a moment, just looking at the flowers, the note, the quiet apartment that no longer felt like home. Then I picked up my keys, took one last breath, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I drove without a destination, just letting the miles put distance between me and the apartment that had started to feel like a museum of what used to be. My phone buzzed a few times, messages probably, but I didn't check. For 30 days she had trained me in silence. Now it was my turn to practice it. I ended up at a small diner off Highway 41, the kind of place that still served coffee in chipped mugs and had old songs playing through a static speaker. I sat by the window and just watched people. Couples talking, laughing, arguing softly, the little sounds of being alive together. I realized how much I'd missed that simple noise. When you live in emotional quiet for too long, even the sound of strangers feels like music. By noon, the phone stopped vibrating. That's when I finally checked it. One message. "Ethan, what is this? The flowers? The note?" No question mark after my name. No emotion. Just confusion. As if she didn't understand how someone could finally stop caring after a month of being invisible. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to explain. She'd been fluent in silence long before I learned the language. For the next few days I stayed with my brother Jake, who didn't ask questions. He just poured a beer, handed it to me and said, "You finally did it, huh?" I nodded. It felt strange and not like freedom, but like standing outside after a storm. "You're soaked, tired, but still standing." Maya texted twice more that week. "We should talk." I didn't mean to make you feel ignored, but apologies lose their weight when they come after abandonment. You can't neglect someone for a month and then try to patch the silence with words. Words were what she withheld first, so I didn't respond. I muted her number and went about rebuilding the small routines she'd eroded. Morning coffee, evening walks, reading before bed. Things that had once been ours, now mine again. Around day 40, 10 days since I left, I received an envelope in the mail. Her handwriting on the front. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity has a way of sneaking past pride. Inside was a note. "No flowers this time. I kept thinking you'd come back. I didn't realize how far away you'd already gone." That was the only sentence. No plea, no anger. Just acknowledgement. It was the most honest thing she'd said in months. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and stored it in the drawer where I keep things that remind me who I was. Not to dwell, but to remember how silence feels when it comes wearing love's disguise. Weeks passed. I started running again, joined a weekend hiking group. I met people who talked to listen, not to reply. One of them, Claire, asked me over coffee what I'd learned from my last relationship. I told her the truth, that love doesn't die loudly. Sometimes it just stops speaking. She smiled in that understanding way people do when they've heard their own heart say the same thing once. Every now and then, I think about Maya, not with anger or regret, just observation. She taught me that affection without attention is a slow form of cruelty, that presence without connection is emptier than absence. People think closure is something you find in conversations or apologies. It's not. It's found in the moment you stop rewriting the same story hoping the ending changes. One evening, months later, I drove past the street where we used to live. The windows of the apartment were dark, the kind of dark that looks permanent. For a second, I imagined her inside. Maybe sitting on that same couch, scrolling through that same phone. Maybe not. It didn't matter. I parked for a moment, looked up and whispered to myself, "Thank you for the lesson." Then I smiled, not because I missed her, but because I didn't anymore. Love, I've learned, isn't about holding on until it hurts less. It's about recognizing when staying hurts more than leaving ever could. And so I left her flowers once, and took my peace with me forever.